Hi, everybody. Welcome to the bonus Design to Thrive workshop. I'm so excited to share this with you all today. I'll be talking about the prizes for the grand prizes from the summit, as well as some 6 of your top tips so that you can help yourself, your leaders, and your organization thrive from the inside out. So for those of you that are watching the replay, I'm super excited to be sharing this with you. And those of you that'll be joining us live, it is so great to connect again. I hope you all had a wonderful weekend. I know a bunch of you were taking time to review the content and the speakers that you missed last week. So hopefully you enjoyed that. I know for me, I took the weekend to celebrate and to wrap up things with the speakers, but also just to rest and really sort of work on incorporating all of the information that we covered this past week. So I just wanted to take some time to really just touch base with all of you and to dive a little deeper into the whole topic. So you know that the whole summit was built from that inside out piece. So day 1, we talked about how to create thriving leaders, whether that's yourself or within leaders in the organization. Day 2, we talked about thriving communication. Day 3, we talked about thriving teams. And then day 4, we talked about thriving organizations. And I like to work, and I believe that it's important to work from the inside out, the inner onion to the outside. So that's what I'm going to be talking to you about today. I'm going to dive into a little bit deeper. I'm just going to make sure I have the stream coming through into the Facebook group here, and then I'll dive right in. So I wanted to have this as sort of a casual workshop feel. So as we're going through this, if you have questions, whether you're on the replay or watching live with me, feel free to put that in the comments, and I'd be happy to dialogue with you now, or I'll come back and check out the comments later. So the idea around this is really to help leaders thrive. And I have known over the years so many leaders, including myself, that have struggled with being in that survive energy. And so that may sound familiar to you, you know, that whole overwhelmed with meetings and decisions and work to do, but no time at your desk to do it. Perhaps you've got a really busy personal life, you're taking care of kids or elderly parents, or a mix of all of that. You also want to be involved in the community. You perhaps have a business on the side. You have all these things happening. But what can happen as high achievers is we can often take on too much and forget to take care of our inner selves first. And that is a common complaint even for organizations. I've worked with a couple amazing organizations this past year specifically, and they brought me in to help some of their high-performing, talented leaders, their vice presidents. I was hired 2 years ago to help an organization and their CEO to get out of that survive mode, because you can't take ownership. You can't lead your organization as a CEO or your team as a vice president or a manager. You can't do that if you're in survive mode. How we show up is going to be how our team is going to be able to show up. So if we're showing up at a -3 every day, our team is going to have a really hard time being that motivated +5 energy. So if we're showing up as motivated +5 energy, then our team has room to rise up and meet us at that level. So that's why I like to work with the inner piece first. So I'm going to talk you through 6 little areas, 6 key areas that you're going to want to check out and look at and kind of do like a measurement. How are you doing in each of those areas? And these are the key areas that I work on in my Design to Thrive one-to-one coaching program, which I am excited to be sharing. I'm going to be opening a group coaching round in March here. So for those of you that think this is interesting, stay tuned and I'll tell you more about that at the end. Also, I'm giving away 2 grand prizes. So I have two prizes that I want to give away to some of our amazing summit attendees. One is going to be my Lifestyle Mastery for Leaders 4-month course. It's a self-paced course and there's training every week. And the whole idea around it is to work on that inner piece first, that mastering of your lifestyle before you look at your leadership. And then the other prize that I'll be giving away is a scholarship to my Design to Thrive group coaching program, or Mastermind, whatever you want to call it. That's kicking off in March. So stay tuned for that. I'll share that all at the end. So for those of you that are listening along and want to look at this like a workshop, what I recommend you do is actually grab a pen and some paper, whether it's in your journal or just a scrap piece of paper or something. And we're going to keep an attention or keep an eye on the things that come up as we're talking. Okay, so for those of you that are watching along, please feel free to comment along as you'd like, or take notes. So the 6 steps I want to talk to you about. The first step that I would like to look at is focusing on energy, motivation, engagement, resiliency, time management. That whole leadership step 1 is what I look at it like. So as a leader, whether this is for yourself or perhaps as leaders within your organization, you know that this needs attention if this leader or yourself are feeling burnt out or drained a lot, if you're feeling rushed and kind of overwhelmed. You know this also needs attention if your motivation and engagement is low. You know, you're not really fully showing up, or perhaps you can see that these leaders in your team and your organization, you can see that they're capable of so much more, but that they're just not getting there. You know, you could see that they could just delegate a bit more to their teams, and they would be able to take on so much more strategic, big picture things, but they're not. And so this is how we know then that this area needs attention. So in this area, I like to look at things like my Thrive Matrix, which you may recall I spoke about in my presentation last week in the summit. And the idea around that is looking at your energy in a scale of rainbow colors. So red, orange, yellow would be a survive mode, and then green, blue, and purple would be more thrive mode. And so I use that actually to kind of diagnose my clients and people that I work with and myself to see kind of where I'm at every day. And so I found a lot of leaders tend to live most of the time in the yellow zone, and sometimes orange or even red. I've even known some very high up people, both in a variety of different organizations, senior leaders, not just junior leaders, that get stuck in that kind of orange or red zone where they're barely keeping it together. And so you can imagine the negative impact that's going to have on the decisions they make, how they show up with their teams, how their teams are going to function, how the productivity is going, all of that stuff, right? So if you could take a moment to self-assess yourself, where are you at today? Where have you been at lately? Have you been in that survive mode zone? Are you kind of feeling like you're running on empty or running on a lower gas tank? Or have you been hanging out more in the thrive mode already? And if you are, that's great. And congratulations for that. So that would be more looking like you have enough energy and inspiration to be fully engaged at work, to be showing up as your best self, having extra energy to do creative projects. You easily go into strategic and visionary thinking regularly, and you are at that sort of overflowing energy gas tank kind of idea. And so that is what I look to help my clients get to first. Before we look at the team leadership pieces, before we look at the organization, the strategic planning, all of that good stuff, we look first at that personal level. If you're interested in diving into that even more, I'll pop into the comments after the recording here is over, my Inside Out scheduling guide, and that helps you take this whole concept of thriving mode or survive mode and set up your schedule so that you are deliberately and intentionally creating a schedule and a life that allows you to have excess energy regularly. And so that is going to be available for you if you want to explore that further. I'll link that later. The second step on the thriving leaders piece that I want to cover with you all today is around the mindset. So the first one was more about energy and capacity. The second one is around mindset and your confidence and all of that kind of inner work. And so what I find a lot of people also, if they're struggling in that survive mode zone a lot, or kind of underperforming, if they're not really kind of maximizing their potential, whether that's yourself, you know, or your leaders in your organization, then the mindset piece can often hold us back. And I found for me, it really kind of can trip people up unnecessarily. So if you think about how, you know, people talk about imposter syndrome or feel like they're not showing up as their fully confident self, then this area can really use some attention. It could also look like leaders maybe doing the work of their staff. They're not confident in their leadership abilities and delegation abilities to pass things on. This can also look like maybe not fully kind of filling up their sort of their selves, right? It's sort of a deflated version. And so if this is sort of an area that you feel might need to be worked on, there are things you can do. And one of the best things that I found builds on what we talked about in the first step, in step one, around that inside out scheduling. But by looking at your mindset, and seeing how you're showing up at the beginning of every day. So if you're at a -2, let's say 0 is kind of at that neutral zone, and then +1, 2, 3 to 5 would be your thriving zone. If you wake up in the morning and you're kind of a -2, you didn't sleep well, you're feeling kind of like, I'm not really that excited for the day. You can imagine how carrying that energy through would impact the work that you do. But if you were to take that -2 energy and have a powerful morning routine that then shifts you to a +4 or +5, say, for the day, that can totally transform how you show up, the decisions you make, how you lead your team, how charismatic you are within your work. All of that stuff transforms immediately. And so looking at both a morning mindset and then your daily and weekly success systems will really set you up well for that. If you're interested in diving into this area more, I also have an Empowered Leader monthly planning kit that has my day-to-day planning checklist, has a weekly review, planning and review, and a bunch of other tools that I put together for you. I'll also put that in the links after the training here as well, so you can explore that further. And then once we get kind of those pieces sorted out, and it can take a while for these new habits and shifts to integrate, but by the time that's been getting attention, then I like to move into the next level, which is around the thriving teams. So the first step around that would be around communication, which you can see kind of aligns nicely with the summit format. Also managing change, your leadership style, and being really intentional about how you're showing up as a leader. And unfortunately, I've actually been surprised how many leaders don't think of themselves as a personal brand. I know we talked about that in the summit, but many people aren't consciously choosing how they're showing up every day. And maybe they have a bit of an idea, but haven't fully been intentional about it. And this is a combination of being clear on what your values are, what's important to you, and then integrating that into how you show up as a leader. And so when this is clear, then you can make sure that you're making solid choices and decisions. You can base those decisions on those values. And so that also ran into some of the themes that were covered last week. And so then when you have your leadership brand clear, then you can look at how you're creating a team culture based on not only yourself as your brand, as your leader, but what kind of culture do you want to create and develop within your teams and your organization? If things aren't working properly, if you are having conflict amongst your teams, if you're having resistance to change, if you're seeing things like your organization or your team aren't working well together, if there's a lot of silos, this area needs attention. So you keep an eye on that. So that would be the thriving team, step one. Step two is more around empowering your teams. So the first one is around kind of assessing where they're at and intentionally looking at how you are leading them. And that, of course, tied into day 3 of our summit. But then the second step on the thriving teams is all around looking at empowering your teams to improve processes, to delegate so that they are empowered to take on things and bring their own genius into the work instead of you doing it for them, which can be often I think a safety zone thing for leaders to do. I know so many the clients that I've worked with over the years have struggled with delegation for 2 reasons. One, because they feel like they're helping. They feel like they're protecting their team by doing the work that their team maybe can't do for whatever reason. Maybe there's something going on in their personal life. Maybe they are struggling at work and they're not able to do the job fully, or maybe there's a variety of different things that I found the leaders tend to kind of almost protect and sort of say, okay, well, I'll do it then, you don't have to, which is very loving and caring, but it doesn't help over the long run. It disempowers the people on your teams, and then it keeps you from being able to rise up to the higher, bigger picture perspective that you need to be as a leader. So that is a common problem. The other problem I found is a lack of confidence with the ability or the process of delegation. And so it can be so easy to think, you know, this just isn't the right time right now. You know, sure, I'll delegate this later in the summer when it's quieter around the office, that kind of thing. And so it's almost like an avoidance of knowing that there's going to be a bit of extra work at the beginning, but the the payoff is going to be huge, because the work drops off from your plate, but not only does the task get taken on by the people that you delegate to, but it empowers them to bring their genius. And so then what happens over a short period of time, it feels like along at the beginning, perhaps when you're scared to do it. But once you've actually started empowering your team and you're focusing more on mentoring and guiding them instead of doing their work for them, your team can blossom and flourish. And it's magical when this happens. And so that is a huge piece that I found can be a big pinch point that holds leaders back from being their fully empowered selves themselves, because they need to trust themselves and trust their team to be able to bring their genius in and really thrive. So that's the second area, is the thriving teams. And then the next step that I like to work on, and that when we're looking at thriving from the inside out, is around the thriving organizations. So the thriving organization step one would be around a life cycle change, understanding about where your organization is in its organization's life cycle and how you can support depending on where you are within your organization's life cycle. So if you're a startup, you're going to be needing very different things than if you're a bigger corporation that has sort of, you've grown and you're needing more process improvement. So understanding where you are in your life cycle is really important, and being able to support your needs at various stages. So the skill sets that you used as a startup are not going to be the right things that you're going to need when you've now quadrupled your team and you are now looking at like I mentioned, process improvement, for an example. And so if you're struggling with things not working the way they used to, this can be an area that you might want to look at, to say, we used to be really good at this, we're struggling now, and then you can look at what it is that you need to maybe doing things differently. So I'm also, not only am I an executive coach, I forgot to introduce myself at the beginning here, as I assume that we've been chatting all week, but I'm an executive leadership coach, but I'm also a trained management consultant as well. And I feel like it's important to not only be aware of our self-awareness, but to be able to look at our teams and our organization from a consultation, kind of pulling back and looking and seeing what's actually happening there to understand what you need and how you can move forward. So that's kind of why I'm building this the way I am today, to talk about the different areas and to identify maybe some of the flags that might say that you might be needing attention there. So then also looking at not just the culture of your teams, but the culture of your whole organization and each of the cultures within each team, but also how is the whole organization doing, and recognizing perhaps maybe where those need to shift and change. You can tell if there are pockets of maybe discontentment or lower engagement. Perhaps you have issues where there's some more conflict, or perhaps you have some pockets within your organization that are highly engaged. And so by looking at what's going on in different places, you can see maybe where those teams and those leaders might need some extra support. So finally, the sixth piece, the second organization thriving step, would be looking at your strategic planning and action. So are you making those changes? Are you actually seeing the fulfillment of your strategic plans? Are you seeing the implementation of the changes that you're looking to see, whether that is now you're going to be providing more resources virtually to your clients, for example, or you are now creating more process improvement, but on an organizational wide scale that is then creating improvement. So one of my clients recently finally got to the point, we had got through these stages to this level, and she was able to bring in an organization-wide financial management tool that was going to reduce not only the admin process for the financial management, but the bookings of any travel, all of the claiming processes, all of those things. So everybody across the organization was going to be touched and reduced of their time and effort needing to be used for this admin process. And so that you can see is an example or an output of a leader who has the excess time to be able to think strategically, has a team who has excess time to be able to take on a strategic project like that, that is then going to up level and uplift the entire organization. And so you would like to have, ideally, all of your teams, all of your sort of subsections within your organization thriving like that. Because when they're all doing that, then the momentum that you can create is just massive. So that is sort of the idea or the goal here, that you can get your leaders from survive mode into thrive mode. So they're strategic, they're visionary, they've got this extra energy. They can then empower their teams to do the same. And then the organization can then become empowered. And it's just an amazing thing. And then finally, I like to wrap up things with celebration. So it's based on the concept of positive psychology, of focusing on strengths first, all of that. I working with the Clifton Strengths program. If you've not ever used that before, it's a great tool. It used to be Strengths Finder 2.0, and then they changed their name. And so the idea around that is to really look at and acknowledge our strengths individually, and to be able to bring those into the work that we do on a day-to-day basis, and then do the same for our teams as well. So that's in continuing to build on that idea of empowering ourselves and our teams to bring our genius to work every day, in bringing those strengths forward. So perhaps you have somebody who's very analytical, but not very relationship focused. And then you have somebody who's very socially minded, but maybe not, and maybe more intuitive, but not as analytical. And so those kind of different perspectives can actually pair together really well, because you kind of offset each other with different strengths. So those are the 6 areas that I highly recommend exploring to identify whether you are doing well in those areas, or perhaps there's something that comes up for you that might need some attention. So I'd love to hear in the comments, whether you're watching live or in the replay, if there's something that caught your attention that you're doing well, and that you want to, pat yourself on the back for. And then one thing that you're looking at that popped up for you today that could be improved, that you could get some support with. And the reason why I ask you to just bring it down to 1 each is because it can be so easy to have thousands of things to do. But if you just think about what's the top thing that you're doing well, you can focus on that and give that attention. And what's the top thing that needs attention, and you can focus that attention there. And then not worry about the rest. The rest will come when it's their time. So that's what I wanted to share with you all today. And so if you're interested in exploring that further, I have 2 options for you. I have this Mastermind group coaching program starting in mid-March that I would love to have you join me. And the idea around this is to make it a little bit of an easier investment for coaching, working with the group so that you're learning from each other. And I'm excited to bring this forward in a group environment. Up until now, this kind of structure I've been working on with one-to-ones. I've done a group coaching with the Lifestyle Mastery for Leaders program, but not this one, the Design to Thrive one that I've talked about, which is the thriving leaders, the thriving teams, and thriving organizations. So what's fun about coaching individually versus this being a course is then we get to support you with where you're at and what your specific topics are. So I've covered sort of broad sort of groups or buckets almost. And then depending on where you're at and what's important for you, then we can tailor that. I also have 2 spots open right now in my one-to-ones with this program as well. I've just finished wrapping up. I'm just finishing wrapping up with one, and the other spot's open right now. So if you're interested in more personalized support with that, I also have that available as well. So what I'll do is I'll put all of those links in the comments for the details if you want to dive into it further. So as you're thinking about everything that you learned last week, as you've been integrating over the weekend, then, we've brought it back together here today around the concept of thriving leader, a thriving teams, and thriving organizations. And like I said, just narrow it down to one thing, maybe on each level, or one thing that you are doing well that you want to continue doing, and one thing that you want to improve upon. And then get support with that. So whether that's coaching with me or one of the other amazing coaches and speakers that you've heard from the summit this year, or perhaps it is the getting support through a training or a course or something. Maybe it is getting a business buddy or a mentor within your work or your industry that can really support you and help you as you uplift and grow. I believe that everybody can benefit from support, and it can be easy to not take it. As high achieving, high performing, highly visionary folks like yourselves, it's easy to feel like we've got to have it all together, that we have to do it all ourselves, and that if we can't do it ourselves, there's something wrong. But That's not the case. It's actually the other way. We can go so much quicker, have so much more fun, go so much faster when we do it together. So I highly encourage you to reach out to somebody this week and get some support to move forward, whether that's in your personal life, in your work life, or both. And just allow yourself to be supported so that you can really truly show up to be your fully empowered, your fully fulfilled person. And so that then that can have that wonderful ripple effect into everything that you do in your work life, with your teams, with your organization, as well as in your personal life and in your community, your families, and all of those that you come into contact with. So that's my personal mission, is to help uplift everybody to get out of that survive mode and into thrive mode so that you can truly have a positive difference and create a powerfully positive impact across the globe. So thanks for tuning in today. I hope you enjoyed this workshop. I look forward to hearing, reading your comments after the fact as well, for those of you catching the replay. And I will pop a bunch of those comments, or not comments, excuse me, the extra resources that I mentioned. So I've got the Inside Out Scheduling Guide you can check out, the Empowered Leader workbook that you can check out. Those are both free. And then I'll drop the links also for my Design to Thrive group coaching program. And then if you're looking for individual group coaching, I have that as well. I also have a second individual group coaching program that is not this one. It's more sweet spot, and it goes deeper into kind of that management consulting assessment, and it's a 6-month program. So if you're looking for something even bigger and deeper and broader than we covered today, that's also available out there as well. But I only have a couple spots at a time open in my one-to-one coaching. I keep them very focused so I can give you that high level of support that you need. So look forward to supporting you and continuing to get to know you all in this Exhale and Thrive community. And I will let you know once we're ready to start talking about the next summit. I'm thinking of something in October, maybe sooner. I'm going to take a little bit of a break, wrap things up from this event, and then I'll look at what I'm going to be planning next. So I will let you know as that all comes together. And thank you for being here. Thank you for supporting us through the summit this past week. Thank you for sharing your knowledge speakers with all of us. It's been an incredible experience. I just want to say thank you again personally for all of that you have shared with all of us, and for all of those that are listening and learning. I wish you all the best as you bring a new level of passion and inspiration into your leadership every single day. So thank you again for tuning in, and I will be in touch again soon. Bye.